Hi, my name's Elisa, and I had a train wreck of a reading year last year. So that's probably very dramatic to say, but it honestly just felt like every other book I was reading was either something I was so excited to read and then ended up being so very meh, or was something I was picking because it was short and ended up being atrocious. I gave out a 1 star this year that I wish I could just give a 0. It was awful and I hated it, and I have a couple books like that, but then I have a lot of books that just straight up disappointed me, and that's almost worse because I had expectations and they just did not live up to them. So we're gonna talk about those books today because I need to rant about them, honestly. So we're gonna get a really atrocious one out of the way first. And unfortunately for me, I just did not enjoy a good portion of the Tiny Horrors Book Club selections this year. I love Allie from Hardback Hoarder, and she started this book club that were Tiny Horrors, which is just short horror. And I was like, great, cool, really intrigued by that. I haven't read a lot of short horror. It fit into what I was doing that year, which was just reading a lot of short books. I read some really bad stuff this year, and the worst of the worst was Them by Meek Watson. This is trauma porn in the worst way. I hate extreme horror that just uses violence against women and children to be edgy, and does it with such grotesque detail. It was honestly some of the worst writing I have ever read. And then on top of it, it was just like, I'm gonna kill or do horrific things to women, children, and animals, and it's gonna count as horror and it's gonna count as literature. I was disgusted by it. I read it in June, and it actually kind of put me into a really dark headspace. It really affected me, and I think I was already kind of dealing with some depression anyway. Reading it fucked me up, I have to be honest, and I think I have to give up the Tiny Horrors Book Club because it was just that was the worst point, but there were some bad points. So, speaking of Tiny Horrors, another book that is on my worst books of last year was Midnight, a Novel of Terror by John A. Russo. This is another one I gave 1 star, and it wasn't even that the violence against women was why. I mean, I did find it to be really just overkill in a lot of ways in that aspect, but it was, like, not edited. I don't understand how you could have so many typos in a book to the point where it is distracting and low-key infuriating. And I mean, the subject matter was awful too, but I think the icing on the cake, the subject matter was a 2. The writing and all of it was a 2. But the typos and just the blatant disregard of just basic writing principles made it a 1, and pissed me off because it was like, I only paid like $2 for this, but I still had to pay for it, and it was not even edited. It was so absolutely awful. No, I can't. It has a way better average rating than Them does. I could not get over the typos. It irked me so much that I did subtract a star, and I remember just being angry about them while reading it. Next, we have the first book that I had real anticipation and excitement for that genuinely let me down, and that is The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. I just hated this book, and I wish I didn't. I have loved pretty much all of Casey McQuiston's other books, and every year their novels are top of my most anticipated. I loved pretty much everything they've done. I can't think of anything that really didn't work for me. I even enjoyed, like, I Kissed Sarah Wheeler. I really enjoyed that, and I am not a YA girl, but this just did not work for me. It was, I read a couple people saying, like, this felt like a very self-insert story. I found the characters so annoying, very pretentious. This is a queer pair of exes that end up on the same European food tour that they were supposed to take together previously, and they end up on it together, and they decide, you know what, let's just have fun and kind of, you know, continue dating, or, you know, whatever during this time, and not take it too seriously and just have a good time. And I just didn't like the characters. I didn't like the situations. I just didn't like any of it. I wasn't rooting for them. It did not work for me at all, and I hate that it didn't work for me. I'm looking at, like, my previous Casey McQuistons. I Kissed Sarah Wheeler really worked for me. One Last Stop, so fun. Red, White, and Royal Blue, obviously really liked it. This one, I just couldn't. I just couldn't. I didn't like the characters at all. I didn't like the situations. It was just, like, really disappointing. I gotta say, it was really, really disappointing. And reading Goodreads reviews that kind of backed up, like, what I was thinking, it was like, okay, cool, thank you. I was really sad. Next up, we have Death in Our Hands by Ottessa Moshfegh. I probably shouldn't be surprised that this didn't work for me, but Books and Lala, Kayla from Books and Lala, definitely influences a lot of my reading choices, and she loved this one. This was, like, one of her top books of the year a couple years ago. And I read the reviews, and I remember thinking, oh, okay, maybe this won't work, but it really didn't work, and it sent me into a reading slump. It is about an older lady who finds a note in the woods that alludes to a murder, and she becomes obsessed with it, basically, and she decides she's gonna solve it. And it's sad in a way because she's just living alone, and this is, like, the only thing that she has right now, and it just there was very little plot. There was a lot of her jumping to crazy conclusions and kind of acting like she knew these people, and it was doing what it set out to do, I think, in a lot of ways, which is the fact that, you know, we have a very unreliable narrator, and, you know, she's kind of losing her mind a bit and is lonely. But it just didn't work for me. It was really, really boring. It was so boring. And I was just like, I can't wait for this to be over. And it's relatively a very short book, so it was just... No. Another just so disappointing one, which I don't think a lot of people agree with me on this, but Somewhere Beyond the Sea by T.J. Klune. It didn't need to exist. It is the sequel to House in the Cerulean Sea, something like that. You know what I'm talking about. Which was one of my favorite books ever, and definitely, like, top 3 of what I read a few years ago. I loved Under the Whispering Door so much, probably even more than House of the Cerulean Sea. I just loved the messages that he created in that book and the relationships. I just loved it. This felt like the first one, just retold. The same themes, the same ideas, just kind of regurgitated. I think he has such interesting characters that if he wanted to write a sequel or even a prequel, there was a way to do that. I don't think we needed a sequel. I don't think we needed to see this happen where these children are just being more put down and made to feel less than and other, and it was just it didn't need to exist, and it was just like, it was fine. I gave it a 3-star, but it was just so meh compared to, like, what you could have written about. Arthur has such an interesting history from what we find out in this and the first book, and I feel like if you had been given a prequel of Arthur, it would have been so much more effective and meaningful than this. This, to me, felt like a money grab, in a lot of ways, and a lot of it felt like a publisher saying, hey, people really loved your first one, why don't you write a sequel? And it just didn't need a sequel, and it was so disappointing, and I'm sad about it. I'm really sad about it. Okay, The Rom-Commers by Katherine Center. I have really enjoyed the previous Katherine Centers that I've read. I love that she has kind of a sillier way of doing things, and that the situations she puts her characters in are not like the most believable things in the world, but they're fun. My review was so funny. I didn't like the love interest for the majority of this, and the main character started to infuriate me about 75% of the way in. I don't like it when our main character falls in love with a man who is just awful and mean and rude and doesn't have a lot of redeeming qualities. And the whole idea is that in this one, they're both screenwriters, and she just loves him. Like, his work means a lot to her, and he is just an asshole the whole time. And they're basically like put together because he decides he's gonna write he doesn't even decide. He has to write a rom-com, and he sucks at it. So she decides, she's brought in to help him, and he doesn't want the help, so he's just a dick. And, obviously they fall in love, and I just hated it. I hated it. He sucked. And then she is so mean to her sister. So mean, and so like, I'm better than you, and condescending, and like, I'm the reason that our family is still dealing with things, because she's got a lot of family trauma that she has to work through. And there's a reason that, she hasn't left her house and stuff like that. And she hasn't, really gone out there and put herself out there into this industry. But God, about 75% of the way through, I was like, bitch, you're awful too. So, yeah, this did not work for me. The relationship didn't work for me. The main character, the love interest, nope. I gave it a 3, but like, looking back, I was so annoyed that it's definitely more like a 2. So, next up, I know I'm in the minority on this, but this did not work for me, and that is The Women by Kristin Hannah. I loved The Four Winds. Like, truly, I am not much of a historical fiction girl. I will read a decent bit of it sometimes, like randomly I'll get really into it. But The Women, the main character, and it's for a reason. It's on purpose that she's annoying and naive. But I'm like, mind blown the whole time that, she's surprised that she's in a war zone. It's about the Vietnam War, and it is important, obviously. I feel like it's cool that she wrote about the Vietnam War. I feel like a lot of authors do not. World War II has been beat to death, one of which, The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah, which I also did not love. Well, I read it really quickly, but meh. And I just don't know if Kristin Hannah's the girl for me. Her writing just doesn't work for me in a lot of ways. I think in The Four Winds, it was such an interesting story, and well done, honestly, that I could get past the fact that I don't love her writing all that much. The Women, it was really, really obvious that I don't like her writing, and I hated the main character. And I don't know. I also don't love that she called it The Women. I get that it's the idea that, there were women in Vietnam. But there's something about the title of it that bugs me. I feel like there were way better, more meaningful titles. And it was just funny because the whole time she's in Vietnam during this book, I'm like, oh my God, you're so annoying and stupid and I hate you. And then she goes home and I'm immediately like, can we go back to the war zone? Because, you're stupid and annoying here too. And I guess she's dealing with PTSD and nobody understands that, especially in a woman. She's being dismissed. She's being told that there aren't women in Vietnam, which I know is actually things men said. And And yes, I think it is something that needs to be written about more. And I love that she did write about the women in Vietnam because it's important. However, just didn't like the way she did it, and I was just slugging through it, and my boyfriend just kept being like, stop reading it, and I'm like, I don't like the DNF books, and I'm like, I will get through it, and I gave it to my mom, and my mom agreed with me, where she's just like, didn't do much for me. We both really loved The Four Winds. So my new thing with Kristen Hanna is I'm gonna let my mom read it first, and then I'm gonna decide if I'm gonna read it, because it actually like pissed me off how much that book annoyed me. Oh my god, talking about books that pissed me off and annoyed me. The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I have more Ali Hazelwood on my TBR. And I am really thinking I'm just gonna delete that, because the writing, I don't get it, guys. I don't get it. I know Ali is like beloved, and like she writes a couple books a year and people like eat it up and love it so much, but her writing genuinely did not work for me. And the characters in this, yet again, another instance of just asshole love interest. Just such a dick, and a very naive and kind of just bumbling, but not in like an endearing way, main character. And I was listening to this like, I don't understand, guys. And it just was so long. It would not end. And the whole time I'm just like, this is so annoying, and I am frustrated and like angry. Like I have to be honest, romance is one of the genres that like piss me off the most, just because I think sometimes it's just like, why are we doing this? Why did this have to happen this way? Or, you know, why did you have to write this character this way? It didn't work for me, and I'm like, I don't know if I can read any more Ali Hazelwood, honestly. I don't think I can. Next up, we have Middletide by Sarah Crouch. This is a murder mystery set in like a small town, and there's a lot of Native American influence in this. And honestly, it was one of those things that I read and I was like, this was handled weirdly. It's a white woman writing about things that she very obviously didn't understand and didn't research very well. And that annoys me to begin with, but then just the complete lack of realistic believability about the trial that happened. They find a body, and I swear to you, this murder trial happens like 2 weeks later. Like, if not like a couple months, maybe a couple months, but it is so unrealistic. And it just annoyed me, because it was like, this is not how this would happen. This takes so long to like get to the point where you're doing your sentencing and you're guilty, not guilty. Like, I'm sorry, it was just like crazy. It was crazy because it was so quick, and it was like, that's not how this would happen. This would have been dragged out. And I don't want to say I didn't care, but like I cared a hell of a lot less when it was really obvious that this was not set in a realistic world. Because also like the like bombshell evidence or bombshell witnesses and stuff, and I'm like, that literally can't happen. That can't happen. Like, I don't, if you watch any amount of court shows or read any amount of true crime or listen to a podcast, it's not how that works. You can't just like bombshell evidence. Like, you have to share what you have, and like, it's literally illegal. So it oh my god, I'm reading it and I'm just like, did she not just Google court proceedings? Guys, come on. And then on top of it, it's a white woman dealing with a lot of like Native American, just, I don't know. It was just so under-researched that I was like, no, I don't care. And even though it was a compelling mystery, and it's about it, there's a love story aspect to it, and I didn't even tell you what it's about, because I really don't even, I think I've like blocked a lot of it, and I have like certain scenes in my head, but it's about a man who leaves his girlfriend to go to college and then decides that, you know what, I'm on to bigger and better things. And then what ends up actually happening, I was like, no, don't care. This is annoying. This is really annoying. And nope. All right, let's talk about more romance that didn't work for me at all. And that is the two Carly Fortune books that I read. which were Every Summer After and This Summer Will Be Different. And I almost read a third one, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. So both of these annoyed me. Every Summer After way more than This Summer Will Be Different. I just did not care about these people. I know I am by no means alone in hating the miscommunication trope, but I feel like Carley Fortune's books take them to like different levels, because it's not just like, oh, I overheard something and I didn't bring it up with him, then now I'm mad at him and I'm not going to talk to him for 3 years. It's, I am not being honest with so many people in my life, and I am going to decide that I'm just not going to be honest or talk to them like an adult, and now shit has hit the fan, or now I'm unhappy, and it's like you're reading it and it's just, well, if you just fucking talk to them like an adult and was honest and were honest and just like told them how you felt, we wouldn't be in this situation at all. And instead, I'm annoyed because I have to watch you deal with this. So yeah, neither of them worked for me. Both of them are like summery Canadian lake romances, and I don't care enough to like give you a synopsis because I don't really want to talk about them. How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. What the fuck is this book? It had so much potential, and then it just took a turn for the fucking worst. And I listened to it, and so like I had to listen to the fucking little, like, I can't even like say like what he said, like I don't even remember, but he had like a little like catchphrase, the thing that is haunted in this book, and like it was awful. It was so bad, and it was another book that wouldn't fucking end. It was so long, and I just it is about a woman who is dealing with the fact that her parents have died and left her with a haunted house. And then she's unearthing trauma with it and within it, and the things that maybe she was forced to do by this haunted entity. I hated it. I hated it so much. It was so annoying, and my friend told me it was going to be annoying, but oh my god. Awful. Awful. Did not like it. The Fury by Alex Michaelides. This was disappointing because I really did enjoy his first two books. The Silent Patient more than pretty much any of his other stuff. Well, I mean, he's written 3 books, but this was annoying in the fact that our main character is annoying, and it's on purpose, but I couldn't get past it, and I didn't think it was surprising or a well-done mystery. It was just kind of like, okay, so you use your friends and now someone's dead, and yeah, like, he's so obviously not trustworthy that it was kind of hard to believe anything he says, so like nothing could surprise me, like no twist was going to surprise me because I didn't believe our narrator at all. So it was just like, meh, not great. And something that actually really did disappoint me, because I have loved pretty much every other Samantha Downing, or even the ones I didn't love worked for me, Twisted Love Story. It's just about a couple obsessed with each other that can't stop being obsessed with each other, and it's just toxic and annoying and not, it just wasn't fun. Like, it was, I love Samantha Downing for the fact that she goes too far and does shit that's like, what the hell did I just read? And this one, it was just like, oh my god, that's so annoying. And I don't like either of you. I'm not rooting for anybody. People are dying because you guys suck, and I just don't care. So those are all of the books that either were truly atrocious, in my opinion, or were just really disappointing and made me sad. But hopefully, fingers crossed, this year is better and I don't have such a long list of books that I found disappointing or bad. But we'll see. We will see, and I will pray I'm not doing this again in a year. But thank you so much for watching. Comment down below your most surprising, disappointing read last year, or the book that you found to be the worst. Either one works. I would love to know. But thanks so much for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, all the normal stuff, and I will see you guys again really soon. Bye.